there's an old saying, and it says, you know you're over the target when you're taking the greatest amount of flack. And the Idaho Freedom Foundation has been often over the target, and especially in the last few weeks, if you read up on various, well, I'll call them liberal publications, you're going to find that the flack is definitely coming in. It's coming in a fast and furious manner. In fact, I was looking through the Chronicle of Higher Education the other day. Not that I spend a lot of time reading that. I just stumbled across it. I was doing a Google search on our lieutenant governor, and I came across this story, but it was a highly critical story. These are people, very liberal people who write about higher education, and they feel that Idaho legislators are being unkind to them because at the moment there's a bit of a hold on the budget for colleges and universities for next year to the tune of a large amount of money right now. And we're joined this morning by the president of the Idaho Freedom Foundation, Wayne Hoffman. And if you've been listening to the radio at all, and they pointed this out at Chronicle of Higher Education, you've been hearing the commercials, and they talk about what's going on in these indoctrination centers we call universities. Bill Colley with you as well on Magic Valley this morning on News Radio 1310 KLAX at newsradio1310.com. I've got 6 minutes after 9 o'clock. And Wayne, welcome back to the program.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was talking. Thank you again. I was talking about this story from the Chronicle, and you could tell that it was written by someone who is having a fit because you're having some success. And I think what's been going on this week in the legislature, there was a point, I guess, when these things used to get approved. Just it was almost as if it was rote. But you may be having a tremendous impact this year, and I mentioned the comments from Bruce Gogg earlier, who really went after the university, Boise State, in fact, because of his daughter's issues on campus. Yeah. And I mean, it really resonated with our audience earlier this morning. Do you think we're going to see some progress here?
I sure hope so. I mean, the vote was, we were counting votes up until Wednesday when the vote was actually had. We thought it was going to be narrow. We thought we had maybe one vote, just one vote necessary to kill the budget, and then come to find out that they had only 13 people voting in support of it. I mean, you even saw Representative Likely, who was saying in the Times News just a few days ago that she didn't think there was any social justice stuff happening on college and university campuses, and she voted no on the bill. So that was pretty amazing.
Sounds like one Republican was a yes vote.
There were two Republicans that were yes votes. There was Carolyn Troy from the Moscow area and Randy Armstrong from the Pocatello area. They voted yes.
Because they both have large university centers there.
Well, but that's always the excuse, right? There's always an excuse for voting for something because it happens to be in your district. So you could have an internment camp in your district, and you'd vote in support of the internment camp because it happens to be in your district and it produces a lot of jobs or something. It's just crazy.
Well, yeah, I got to say, I understand the university's point, that only in the sense that they want to have some knowledge of what they can plan for next year. However, to sit here and deny that they're trying to run an indoctrination mill, I graduated, I got my bachelor's degree in 1984, and it had started then. And I understand through my own family and children and nieces and the like that it's not gotten any better. But it seems to me that this could at least bring about some sort of behavior modification on the part of administrators and faculty.
Well, I sure hope so. And don't forget, they've had a long time to figure this out. And in fact, we started talking about this problem in the spring of 2019. And as a result of talking about it, during the spring of 2019, the legislature passed a budget in 2020 that said, okay, universities, get your act together, reduce the administrative bloat, get back to your core mission, and let us know what you've done to accomplish these things. And instead of doing that, they basically doubled down on the social justice, the critical race theory, and indoctrination. They've not learned their lessons, and it's their own fault they're in the position they're in.
There's almost, though, a sense, I think that they have a sense of entitlement, that when it comes to nearly $700 million, that they deserve it, that they have to get their hands on that. And if you get in the way, and of course mainstream media backs this up, every you can imagine this coming Sunday, every editorial board in the state will be railing against these extremist Republicans for actually doing this.
Well, yeah, that's true, and there's a couple of other things too. And one of those is that the universities believe that they operate outside the regular system of government. And the second thing is the legislature has not really exercised oversight over the universities. I've been watching the Idaho legislature since 1995 when I moved to Twin Falls. And at that time and ever since then, the legislature comes to town, the university presidents show up and give a big speech about all the wonderful things they're doing on campuses. Everybody applauds, and then everybody goes home. This year is really the first year I've heard legislators in committees ask some very tough questions of the university presidents about what they're teaching students about critical race theory, about social justice, about believing that white people are inherently racist, and on and on and on. And as a result of asking some really tough questions, the legislature is, for the first time that I can remember, asking the questions that need to be asked and holding the universities accountable.
We got to point out as well, because they'll say, well, it's a marketplace of ideas. They'll come up with all the usual, the almost program lines that they give out in these situations. But it's not a marketplace of ideas, as Representative Scogg's daughter discovered. If you do not have their ideas, your ideas simply aren't going to be allowed, or you're going to be mocked for them. And so you don't have a free and open discussion any longer. It's all just, again, as you pointed out, it's an indoctrination mill.
It is, and the other thing too is, I just listened to a university professor lecture from Boise State that was done earlier this year, in which the professor was going on about different things, such as maybe we should consider the possibility that white people should serve a couple of centuries in slavery, because after all, black people did, which is crazy, but that's what this professor was suggesting. They were suggesting that it's unfair that society is built around a white framework. They were suggesting that it's sexist if a man holds open a door for a woman. Then they had a big discussion about gender and whether gender tropes are okay in the 21st century. And there's just a lot of things that were just extraordinarily bizarre to me, and these were being passed off as theories that deserve plausible consideration by students. It's crazy.
I got a note, by the way, from a writer in Burley, and he just said, "Can we find out who the 13 were?" Now, oftentimes, I'll see people post on Facebook the board with the votes. The green being green yes, and then orange no. But that's not always readily available, is it?
Yes, it's online, and if you go to the legislature's website and you click on the link for Senate Bill 1179, the list of the votes are on that page.
So you can see what everybody did in their local districts.
You can see how everybody voted. That's exactly right.
We're at 9:13, and Wayne Hoffman joining us. He is the president of the Idaho Freedom Foundation. Bill Colley as well on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. So this is not over with, and I just have a gut feeling that at some point a lot of folks are trying to make some noise. Look, Ron Nate will not vote for this in the long run. He will stick. I know he will stick to his position. But a lot of people will likely feel, I've got it off my chest, and I'm worried that down the line, as a taxpayer myself, that you'll see a lot of these people ultimately cave. And in other words, they'll say, well, we got our message across, and that was important.
That's concerning, but they could have also just passed the 1179 and claimed that they got their message across. That's the thing, is that they certainly. I was very concerned about that. The Senate had already passed Senate Bill 1179, claiming that they were sending a message to the colleges and universities by extracting $409,000 from Boise State's budget. And the House could have very easily gone along with that and said, all right, we're sending our message. They've learned their lesson because we took 0.01% out of Boise State's budget, and they'll never do it again. But no, they held their ground, and they said, we're not going to have this. We've got to do much more. There's probably as much as $20 million in social justice spending taking place system-wide in Idaho, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's also all the different ways in which social justice, critical race theory, critical theory generally are being just baked into the cake at these different schools. So I thought it was pretty amazing that they didn't just take the easy way out, and they did say we've got to do much more, much more, and God bless them for it.
Well, at this stage of the game, then the universities, and I guess President Trump from BSU is likely the leader of the group as far as lobbying goes. They've got to come back then and present some sort of alternative, or at least answer some questions and say, hey, we will make some changes before we actually have anyone release any of that money.
No, we've heard enough from President Trump and President Green at Idaho, University of Idaho, and we've heard ways enough that they've had their chance to make their case. Now it's time for the legislature to go and just write a new budget, and really it's not that hard. All they have to do is extract some amount of spending that's being used for social justice, and then put a very strict prohibition that says no public dollars, and this is very, very critical, no public dollars can be used in support of these radical agendas. The reason why that's important is because the previous bill said no state appropriated money can be used for social justice, and then it went on to say that the universities are to provide a report on the spending they do on social justice, which basically means that they were still allowed to go do it, they just had to use different buckets of funds. Meaning they can get federal money to do it, they can get a grant from Coca-Cola or Starbucks to do it. We're saying no more. Stop doing this stuff. Stop dividing students into oppressors and victims. Stop just saying that Americans are inherently racist because America is built on a racist system. Stop denigrating folks based on the color of their skin or their, the gender. We're telling them just to completely stop. We don't need Marlene Trump to tell us how to do that. The legislature can do it on its own.
I got about 2 minutes before the first break of this hour. I shared a theory that I just was percolating earlier this morning. If you'd go back to maybe just before the pandemic struck, as they call it, last year, you had a lot of people, a lot of Republicans, I think, who were serving in this legislature in Idaho, who, I don't like the term moderate, but we'll throw that out there just as a descriptor, and they were willing to go along with a lot of things. But it seems that the result of the last 13 months and the power grab by the governor and the initial heavy-handedness of what was taking place changed the composition of that soup in the legislature, and it was perhaps people are waking up to the threat that we're seeing, and that the fact that in the culture wars the other side is playing for keeps.
Yeah, I think that's partly true. The other part of that too is that voters in Idaho were waking up last May, and we said this was going to happen. That after the May primary, the electorate here in Idaho voted in the most conservative House of Representatives the state has ever seen. I'm talking ever in the state's history, the most conservative House of Representatives. The problem you have is that they didn't do that over in the Senate. So if you look at the state Senate, they're still going along with allowing the governor to have all these emergency powers. They're still going along with allowing the universities to run around and do whatever they want. They're still going along with the various special interest groups having a huge say in the public policies of the state of Idaho. So there's a big difference between House and Senate. What you just describes very accurately what's happening in the House, plus the addition of the result of the election in 2020. But there's still a very, very big problem in our state Senate.
We got to get to a break for just a moment, but I'm going to keep Mr. Hoffman with us for a few more minutes on Magic Valley this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX at newsradio1310.com. It's 35. It's 9:20. He's the president of the Idaho Freedom Foundation, and Bill Colley with you until 10 a.m. this morning. Oh, also wanted to point out, too, don't have quite the list together for Monday, but still working on a couple of guests for Monday that will, put it this way, advance this whole story. But I've got to get in touch with them over the weekend in order to do that. And sometimes if they're like me over the weekend, they're not always what you'd call available. Maybe that's the right word. Wade Hoffman is the president of the Idaho Freedom Foundation, joining us this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. 923, we're at 36. Bill Colley with you too. And Wayne, you were telling me off air you'd like to make a couple of comments this morning about the website as well. I know a lot of times I'm a little remiss because everybody we have on the air, this is a great resource. If they can direct the public, the listening public, to the website, you might actually get people who are more active that way.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate that, Bill. We have a website called fixidahocolleges.com, fixidahocolleges.com. And it's important because from that website, you can send a message directly to your state legislators about this issue of social justice, critical race theory, and all this other indoctrination. And we just need to keep the pressure up, because if we don't, you keep in mind that Idaho's college and university campuses, they're teaching young people to hate America. They're promoting socialism, Marxism, rewriting history, portraying us as racist, and that's what they're doing. And you can learn more about that at fixidahocolleges.com, and you can act. And it only takes a few minutes to go do that. The second thing is, this indoctrination stuff isn't just happening on our higher education campuses. Unfortunately, it's now trickling down into the pre-kindergarten area. There's a bill in the state legislature. In fact, it's going to be considered this morning in the state Senate, and probably will pass, quite frankly. The bill in the state Senate, and what it would do is it would give a $6 million grant to a very radical leftist organization that's connected to a national radical leftist organization that basically is getting kids books in the hands of young people that, teaches them that white people are racist, that gender is fluid, that you can have 3 mommies and 10 daddies or whatever. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's being given to our kids, and they're trying to make it out as if it's an innocent thing, wherein we're just creating this pre-kindergarten system all throughout the state, but really it's much more nefarious than that, and it is, at minimum, federal control over our young people ages birth to 5, but at maximum, it's also just a new venue for the left to teach our kids their radical ideas. So that's Senate Bill 1193, and I hope that your listeners will consider calling their legislators and telling them to vote against that bill.
It's not uncommon, to see these things come in, and of course, the pot is sweetened because someone says, "Here's some money," so you don't have to actually, raise anybody's taxes for a program like this, and yet there's always some sort of strings attached.
Yeah, it's terrible because there will be strings attached, and with the Biden administration, of course, you can imagine one of those strings being, here are the books that you're supposed to have in the pre-kindergarten using federal dollars. I remember this when I was a lot younger, and we had a home daycare, and in order to receive federal money, which the parents always wanted the free federal money, the daycare had to use certain food items in the daycare. You had to have certain kinds of, government-approved nutrition. And the same thing is going to be true with regard to nutrition of the mind. Here are the books that you have to have. Here are the books that you cannot have. And if you think that that's a crazy idea, then just take a look at everything else the federal government is trying to control and the ways they're trying to manipulate society.
When I'm doing the show, a lot of things are going through the file cards in my mind. So I don't remember everything specifically that gets said, but I have a writer who sends me a message and said, "So what are the names of those 2 radical organizations?" I said he's looking for some specifics on that, and I'm trying to remember what we were talking about.
So the name of the organization in Idaho that's trying to indoctrinate young people in our state is called the Idaho Association for the Education of Young Children. They're connected with a national group called the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And all across the country, these groups with that nice-sounding name have been using the pre-K venue to indoctrinate kids as young as 5 years old into believing. I mean, we even had we did you'll see it on our YouTube site soon, I'm sure, but examples of what these books look like. It is extraordinarily bizarre and radical. It's like A is for advocate or activist, and U is for union, as in supporting the labor unions and so on. I mean, it is creepy, it is crazy, and it is real. There is even a book called Sparkle Boy, which is about a little boy who likes all the girly things, and they did show how it's perfectly appropriate for him to try on all the girl stuff and pretend to be a girl for a while, or maybe permanently. I don't know, but you get the idea. It's crazy, but this is not something made up. This is happening all over the country, and it's coming to a preschool near you.
Well, Wayne Hoffman, always good to speak with you, and we'll try to do this a little bit more frequently.
Bill, I always enjoy talking to you. Thanks so much.
All right, have a good day, sir.
Bye bye.
Wayne Hoffman is the president of the Idaho Freedom Foundation, joining us this morning on News. Excuse me. The allergy season in full swing, or at least the pollen season. He was joining me this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. I have one more half hour of the program still ahead. A lot of things I didn't get to earlier. I'm going to try to clear from my. You should see my desk this week because we've been so busy with so much going on. Everything from gun confiscation with the Biden administration to some of the issues here in Idaho. The stack of material on my desk that I didn't get to today could probably be the equivalent of two old-fashioned, no, because I say old-fashioned, phone books aren't very common anymore, but these are probably the size of a Seattle, Washington phone book, what we used to call a phone book. I mean, big, thick. I won't get to all of that, trust me, in this last half hour, but we'll try to hit on a few high notes.